Akong gi-tan-aw balik ang bilen atong Pasko. Kay sa ako ang kwarto na pamagod ang bilen. Hangtod karon, napagani ang Christmas tree. Magbuot mo. Unya, I just realized somehow that among the characters in the nativity scene, which is relegated to the background, marabag hardly noticed by many, is the character of Joseph. The focus of the Belen is Jesus. Next to him is Mary. Supposedly Joseph should be the third, but we stop there. We hardly even talk about Joseph every time we have masses during Aguinaldo, except when the gospel speaks about Joseph. But little do we know somehow, somewhere, that Joseph had a very big and special role in the economy of salvation. And reflecting on him and his role, I would like to believe that Joseph captures the essence and the mood of Christmas, which is tranquility, silence, and reflection. So, if I would like to ask myself as of the moment after reflecting this, I'd like to bring in the figure of Joseph in the forefront. Because I'd like to believe somehow that Joseph is a very important man that we have to emulate his virtues because of his incredible amount of obedience. Not only that, because also of his great level of kindness and forgiveness. Let's try to figure out who Joseph is. Tradition would like to tell us that Joseph was about 17 to 20 years old when he was engaged with Mary. So can you ever imagine that? Joseph was 17 to 20 years old. Mary was about 12 to 14 years old as well when the engagement happened. And there is this author that I have read his article, and he was telling that Joseph knows the scriptures very well, and he knows the law, and he also obeys the law and uses the law accordingly. Now, we don't hear Joseph talking in the gospel. There is no quote coming from him. There is nothing. And his role and his appearance in the gospel was quick, but very resolute, very firm, very important. Now, in order to understand him and his character, let's try to understand the law. Because over and above, when you talk about obedience of Joseph, first, he was obedient to the law of Moses. Why is this so? We have to remember that there are 3 stages of a Jewish marriage. The first stage is called betrothal period. The second is waiting period. And the third is the wedding feast itself. Now, in the betrothal period, we have to know that literally in the betrothal period and preparation and arrangement between a man and wife, this was considered to be already literally man and wife. Because even in that betrothal period, they already made an exchange of vows. So that, bisag sinayuran pa sila, pasabot ana, anything that happens in between, dako kaayo og impact. The waiting period is the time when, while waiting for the wedding, the wedding feast, the husband has to build a house for them, and the family prepares the wedding feast. Sana all, pareha sa una. Nga even before you get married, na kay house. No? Or, because the wedding at the time would run even up to the whole week, then you can imagine that the preparation for the wedding would last for a year. So, dugay ang preparation, dili kay magdali-dali sa kaminyoon. Okay? And of course, the wedding happens that on that day, the groom would go to the house of the bride in procession, followed by the bridesmaids and the best men with torches and lamps. So you can imagine the story of the wise virgins and the foolish virgins. Remember? Because of this procession thing. Here it is. They were betrothed. Sinayuran sila at the time. And according to the law of Moses, if the wife gets pregnant even in the stage of betrothal process, she is considered to be an adulterer. Mananapaw. So Mary got pregnant during that betrothal period. And so what happens is, there are two things that a man can do when a wife gets pregnant in that period. One, either he would bring her to court, and if found guilty, she will be stoned to death. Imagine ka kung gidala ni Joseph, kung gikihan ni Joseph si Mary. Huh? Second, if not, then the man would divorce her privately. It means that he had to end the contract marriage already. And this second option, actually, Joseph wanted to do, to divorce her privately, so that she would not be exposed to scandal and not found guilty and be stoned to death. So what happened is, while he was contemplating on this in a dream, because in a biblical time, dreams were considered a way to make God's will known. Kung sa unang panahon, kung ang Ginoo mupahibalo sa iyang plano nimo, ipadamgo na niya. And here in Joseph's life, he was dreaming one day, that God resolved his dilemma by the message of an angel. Because the angel said, "Do not be afraid, Joseph, to take Mary as your wife, because the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, and for he will save his people from their sins." And immediately, when Joseph awoke, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. Ikaw ba, inong ka sa imuhang, na yung pakita ni mong anghel, all of a sudden, you know, nga ang imuhang wife, nagmabdos, naglagot ka, inong ka sa anghel nga, you know, don't worry about that, because, you know, the Holy Spirit is the very reason for the pregnancy of your wife. Ikaw ba? Ha? Sabi mong bahaton ko no be. Huh? But Joseph didn't say anything. He immediately did what the angel commanded him, because obedience of Joseph made it possible for him to surmount his difficulties and spared Mary. Obedience makes things possible easy. Di ba? Come on, dili seminaryo. If I know. There are a lot of things so difficult here, huh? And a lot of times our will runs counter to the will of the superiors, di ba? Ay na lang ko gistoryahe. Because may magwa ko moagi, na? When sometimes you get upset you get mad precisely because what you want to do, you cannot do it because the superior said no. And I can understand how you would feel it. Somehow, mas grabe ang mahitabo. Pero there's only one solution to this. Naglagot ka, gisapot ka, kadili ka kahimo sa imong gihimo, there's only one solution to this. Obey. Di human, sig bagulbol. Tapusan na, obey. Kana namin mo uli pa der, dele, adi obey, human. No? Father, among cellphone, among natang kuhaan, dele, obey, human. Obedience makes possible for us to surmount our difficulties. Joseph obeyed second time in a dream when the angel told him, get up, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you to come home. Immediately, Joseph did not hesitate to obey regardless of the hardship involved. Was that easy to bring Mary and the little child to Egypt? The journey towards Egypt. Did he say anything? Nothing. He didn't complain. Ayang gihimo, obey. Third, in a dream, the angel told him that those who sought to kill the child were dead already. So rise up, take the child and his mother, and return to the land of Israel. Another journey. Magdala kag bata. Oy, lisod kay na, oy. And you know what he did? He promptly obeyed. O, diba? Murag sayon rin, no? Sa kalisod sa iyang gi-travel, pero Joseph did it so by obeying. And the fourth time, he went away to the district of Galilee and he made his home in a town called Nazareth. 4 times he was told by the angel. And he obeyed. And everything went right. Here is Joseph's school, the school of obedience. In that school of Joseph, Jesus learned to be obedient to his parents. And Jesus even learned to do the will of the Father, even obedient unto death on the cross. Let's try to imagine Christ praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was very scared about the forthcoming death. And they say, Father, would you please take this cup away from me? My God, I can't take it. But it was easy for him to say, okay, it's not my will, but your will be done. Adi human. Where did he get that? Joseph's obedience. As a matter of fact, here we say that Joseph's yes and obedience to God is another fiat. If you remember the fiat of the Blessed Virgin Mary, right? What's the fiat of the Blessed Virgin Mary? Magnificat. Be it done unto me according to your word, fiat. And Joseph did the same. He didn't say that, but his heart prompted to obey whatever it is. Even if he did not understand, even if there were a lot of difficulties that he would face and confront with at the end, obedience was the language of Joseph's school. I'd like to remind you, brothers usaha, that our life, your life, my life as a priest, is a life of obedience. I have read that on the Facebook. I post it on Ingon niya. Obedience is even more difficult to accept than celibacy. Wow, ah. Tinood na. Ang celibacy, you can live alone. I mean, in celibacy, you can embrace it. But obedience, it's all about your will. If I want to do it now and the superior says no, grabe na. But celibacy is a state of life for the rest. When you have embraced it, when you have chosen it, then that's it. Pero obedience, it's difficult to accept than celibacy. And here, we must learn from Joseph's fiat. What does it mean? That our life must be lived in accordance with obedience. Kung dili ka kaobe, gawas. Wala ko masuko. What is obedience? Pasaylo akong taas akong humila, magbuot mo. You're inviting me to come over, so tiwaso na ko di tanan. Obedience for so many, for all of us. We believe that obedience is to submit the will to a long list of rules and to the will of our superiors. Muna yung nakasakit. Because we believe that we submit to the long list of rules. Sa seminary ba, all rules. Bagting, kaon, sunod, bagting, kaji, ampo, rules and regulations. But no, it's more than that. There is far more than that. Obedience can, in fact, be a way of becoming free for God. You want to be free for the Lord? Obey. Kung kamo, gipriso mo karon, kung ang inyong gibati ron, gaguol mo, gipriso mo, then you are not free because you have not loved and lived obedience to its fullest. Second, obedience is a way of finding true joy, happiness. Are you happy? Wala lang utanar ako. Because if you are not, then you are not obeying. Somebody who is obedient is somebody who is happy and finding joy in his life. My God, wow, this is what life is all about. This is what I want. Happiness and free. Obedience is the language of it all. We are called to be contagious with joy. The joy of the gospel. Evangelii Gaudium, the joy of the gospel. And you should be able to share this joy with others precisely because you have found obedience as your life. What is obedience? It means to listen intently, to open one's ears, to heed in practice, meaning to obey means to listen and put it out into practice. Because listening is a word that we hear a lot in connection with obedience. You want to obey? Kabantay mo, kanabitang, what's this? You ask permission. When you ask permission, anya mo yung superior, dili, unsa inyong buhaton? Silence. In silence, doon ang mahitabo. Naglagot ka or nituman ka. Pagpili. Choice. Because in listening, when we obey, we listen not to ourselves. Especially in the seminary, we don't listen to ourselves. We listen to God in the silence of our hearts. In the seminary, we do not listen to our own voice. When there is conflict of interest, choose God's interest. Ingon si Kristo, why are you looking for me? Don't you know that I should be in my Father's house? Ingon si Kristo, Lord, Father, I don't like this, but your will be done. listening to the superiors is important in the seminary formation because God reveals His plan for you through them, not through in a dream. Ha? Ay na pagdaho mga muduol pa ninyo anghel may Fritz mapari ka. Dili. The superiors, their voice reveals the plan for you. Not only that, say the fiat of Joseph. What is his fiat? Listen in silence and obey. That's why here we have plenty of silence. Don't you realize that? Ampo, meditation, reading, etc. Listen in silence. And I'd like to end with two more notes. One, Pope Francis suggests that in this Lenten season, we have to fast. Fast from words, be silent, and listen. Kana mga talkative, iskat staple. Staple. No? Listen to more in the inner recess of your heart. Pope Francis says, be quiet and listen and obey. Because when you hear God and you know what is His plan for you, there's only one thing you can do. Obey. And you'll be free and you'll be happy. Ganiharang buntag, pag mata dyan ako, pag browse ako sa Facebook, mo ni ang nigawas, nalipay kay ko, Cardinal Tagle. Kabalo ka siya gisulat sa post, yun ani. The perfection of obedience to God comes when you do not understand anymore the will of God for you. I like it. The perfection of obedience to God comes when you do not understand anymore the will of God. So if you do not understand, and then you have a perfect obedience. Say, fiat kung maglagot ka, and Joseph is your model. I'd like to ask you a question to end my homily. Obedience means listening intently. Ang akong tanong, are you listening? Humana.